Hello and welcome to this special episode of Daughters of Narcissistic Mothers podcast. And today, as a guest, we have Kat Shaw. As an activist artist, Kat prides herself on dismantling the patriarchy, breaking society's stereotypical views of beauty, and glorifying every single body shape through her art. Over the last 7 years, Kat has painted over 3,000 glorious women into goddesses, held many successful exhibitions and live shows. She has run enriching workshops and painted not only onto canvases but also directly onto women's body. After graduating with a fine art degree, Kat became a teacher for over 17 years but lost her teaching career in 2024 due to her online presence and refusing to hide her. She is now even more fiercely following this path and advocating for women full-time. She is a priestess of Avalon and of Magdalene Rose lineage, a priestess of Kali, and a sister of Rhiannon, a Reiki master, a fierce feminist, pole dancer, animal communicator, belly dancer, and mom to a gorgeous adult daughter. So before I welcome Kat, I want to add that I wish you could see the amazing art she has today as her backdrop. And you won't because this is only audio, but if you want to see snippets of the video recording of this podcast episode so you can see the art in behind her, you can go on to my Instagram account, women_reclaiming_their fullness. I'll put the link in the description and you're going to see the beautiful art that is behind Kat today. Okay, so welcome, Kat. I am so excited to have you back on the podcast.
Thank you for having me, sweetheart. I'm delighted you invited me back. People either go one of two ways. They're like, oh, hell no, never again. She's too much. Or people are like, yay, come back. So I'm delighted it's the second option.
Yes, it definitely is. It definitely is. So, Kat, you have painted over 3,000 women. So for those of you who are listening in that have not listened to our previous episode, now that was a few years ago because at the time you were doing the Survivor project. And so, yeah, that was probably
5-6 years ago now.
That's incredible. Yes. So I will include the link to that episode in the description of this one. So if anyone wants to catch up also on that. And in that episode, you're giving us your origin story, like actually where you started and all of that. So we don't need to go through all of those details again this time. But I would like for you to speak a little bit about your work because you paint glorious bodies in every shape, which is amazing. And it's such a unique art. So yeah, I'd love for you to speak a little bit about your art, the intention behind it, the energy you infuse into it.
Absolutely, I'd love to. How long have we got? 7 hours? I can talk for a million years about this. So as you said, I won't go into real detail about how I started because that's going to be in the different link because I went quite into detail. There's a real fundamental reason why I started this. I won't go into detail about that right this second, but it all started off, the very short story is that it all started off because I put on a fuckload of weight very quickly and was really hating myself. Really, you hear the narrative of, oh, you've really, I started dieting when I was 13 and spent, about 30 years trying to keep this. I'm 6 foot tall and I was trying to be a size 8, size 10, a teeny frame, dieting, exercising all the time. And then life got in the way. I put on a shitload of weight and you hear the narrative of, oh, you've let yourself go, how disgusting you are, your body's bigger now, oh, you're quite pretty for a fat girl, all this. I've heard it all before. And I just hated my body so desperately because of the way it looked, the way she looked. And then I started to draw myself as a bridge to loving my actual body. I would draw myself naked in front of the mirror, and I would love my body. I'd love the paintings, and that was the bridgeway to try and begin to love my body. And then a friend of mine had said, "Oh, what are you doing?" And I told her, and then I drew her, and it snowballed since then. And I'm up to nearly 3,500 women now, about 8 years later since I started. But do you know what's really interesting? And it's going to be really lovely to watch the old version of the podcast and then watch the newer one, because my ethos is still about self-love. Very, very much self-love, body love, acceptance, authenticity, diversity, all that kind of stuff. However, what's happened is it's snowballed into this real activist artwork, because within the self-love sphere comes the fact that, where did we get this narrative? So then, first of all, I was very much like, oh, love your body, embrace your curves, embrace your scars, embrace everything. I started unpicking it and thinking, hang on a fucking minute, where the hell have I got these ideas from in the first place? Who classifies plus size models? Who wrote the narrative that when you put on weight, you're less worthy or less lovable or less, likable, or and so then I started looking into that, thinking, hang on a minute. And then I realized that since the second I'd been born, I'd had society's patriarchal, misogynistic, kind of repressive views drip fed into my soul. And then I started to really work a lot with Kali, the goddess Kali, the fierce goddess, and shit. And it was just like this rage was bubbling inside me, which is where my Sacred Rage project came from about 4 years ago, because I was just like, hang on a minute, I'm living by these rules that I didn't even make. And I don't even know that I'm living by these rules that I didn't want to make. And the more you uncover about women being second-class citizens, the more vast it gets. So it's not just about loving your body and loving yourself. It's about stepping into this power of going, hang on a minute, why have I not got equal rights with men? Why can I not? I lost my job recently. We'll talk about that later if you want to. My teaching career, because of the patriarchy. I lost my Facebook page because of the patriarchy. Why is a man allowed to share his nipples online and a woman isn't? Why are my paintings being vilified? Why are women, the gender gap? I think, I don't know, possibly before, possibly after, but I had a late diagnosis of ADHD about 5 years ago. Why is there the gender gap? Why was I not diagnosed earlier? Because it's the gender gap, because all the testing was done on boys and men. So the more I started looking into it, so it started off all beautiful, like, yeah, love yourself. There is still that vibe. But actually now I'm fucking angry, because I'm like, hang on a minute. I went through so many years not loving myself, not standing in my power, not being empowered to speak up, thinking that I wasn't worthy. And still now today, women are coming up against these barriers all the time. And a lot of that is rooted around shame. And a lot of my work is about not holding shame in your body. Not holding shame in your body. Yet as women, we are shamed consistently for so many different things. So I've been on this real journey which started off quite surface level, which is still very, very important. And that's still the underpinning it of body love. And now it's like this raging divine feminine Shakti Kali energy of going, this isn't okay. This isn't okay. And this is why my work has become a bit more feral and a bit more fierce and a bit more activist like. And you see that playing out in my projects, because we're just being shut down. Women are shut down consistently and have been for years and years and years and years and years. And that's also beginning to play out. So it's really it's a really fun, I say it's a really fun journey I'm on. It is fun and it is amazing, but it's very painful, because when you open your eyes, you can't close your eyes again. And it's vast and it's huge, and the battle is massive against the patriarchy. And it's really I come across a lot of men as well saying, there's a lot more men have been interested in my work lately that don't just want to send me dick pics, because for some reason, because I paint naked women, men seem to think they can inbox me naked photos of themselves. But there have been a lot more men interested in my work lately, but wanting to listen. And I'm the first person to say, like, I am a feminist, I'm an activist, but I love men in their conscious power. You know, the patriarchy, what I'm fighting against is the patriarchy and toxic masculinity and misogyny, which is very, very different to men. You know, and
Mhm.
when we can make that real clear definition, then you have a whole load of allies as well. You know, it's not about women ruling the world and women this or women, it's about equity, raising women up so that we get equality, and the fact that men are so amazing in their divine masculine, you know. So I always like to make it really clear that what I'm fighting against and who I'm fighting against is the patriarchy, not men, you know. So that's a kind of little of what I've been doing since we last spoke.
Yes, and it's such a courageous path because someone has to speak about it, and that is, it is intense, as you mentioned. When you actually start opening your eyes to it, then you can't close them again. You can't unsee
Yeah,
or unknow what you know. And also there's, like, of course, your own personal grief and anger for what you have suffered and seen in your own body. So it makes perfect sense. It seems like um there has been like an arc in your work, like from survivor to sacred rage to then this, now that rage laid the foundation for being able to be unapologetically you. So it feels like there's this
yeah.
beautiful continuous in it.
It definitely does. It all, one thing always flows into the other. You know, my work isn't just painting as well. People think I just paint. I do paint. I love painting, but my work is sacred. It's a sacred ceremony. It's ritualistic. I set sacred space, and I'm obsessed with manipulating energy. So it's about the healing that comes from being involved in the painting. It's about the energetic vibration of the world changing when women gather together. You know, every painting I do, every big project I do is about manipulating the energy, the resonance of the energy in the world to try and raise it. You know, so for instance, Sacred Rage, I think I had about 85 women in my Sacred Rage project, and we fucking shouted and screamed and howled, and it was all about black and red. And it was, you know, it was very angry because for so many years women's voices have been silenced, completely silenced. You know, we live in this structure of women having to be the good girls and sit quietly in the back and don't have an opinion and don't have a voice and don't be too big, but don't be too small. You know, there's all these rules. And so in my Sacred Rage project, I gave these women the permission to feel their sacred rage and their anger and to have a voice and to have a space. So that was so powerful. That was like the element of fire. It was like, um, and then obviously that transmuted into, because no one wants to hang on to that, right? We've got it and we're allowed to express it, but no one wants to hang on to the sacred rage because it burns us up inside. So that was the time to release it. And then that transmuted almost into the element of probably air next, because then that all blew away. And it was like, do you know what? I've said it. I've said my bit. I'm pissed off. And I've spoken my truth and I've been heard. And now I'm going to step into my power of being unapologetic, of being authentic, of being me exactly as I am, and not even having to speak about it anymore because we're unapologetic. Where, like, no is a complete sentence. I don't have to explain myself. I just am. And here I am. And so they all lead from one project to the next because the energy that resonates has to be changed and manipulated and upheld and risen. So that's where these projects come from. It's not just, I don't just sit and go, oh, I'm gonna just paint a load of women and call it unapologetic. It's a real connection to the energy that's resonating around the earth, especially for women, and what we as women as a collective need to be able to change. And in unapologetic, I think I had 113 women that I painted. So that the projects, they get bigger and bigger and bigger as each one goes. And the more women who join in this collective energy, we're manipulating the energy for all the women, because not every woman in the world can do this kind of work because they don't have the means to do it, or they don't have the some women in the world at the moment are going through fucking shit stuff. Do you know what I mean? So it's up to us to raise the vibration for all the women. And when we come together as a collective project, that's what we're doing. So it is about the artwork, it is about the naked bodies, it is about celebrating our bodies and our shapes and ourselves, but collectively it's about lifting the energy up for all the women.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's so important and such powerful work. And yes, the unapologetic, like I know I was one of those
Yeah,
113 women,
you were.
and it was such an incredible experience. And we do have an episode on this podcast. Myself and Estelle Kiber, we did an episode talking about our experience on your unapologetic project. So again, I'm going to put the link in the description for anyone that wants to catch up with that.
Oh, please do. I'd like to see that myself. You probably
It,
sent it to me, but we all know how scatty I am.
that's okay, things get lost. But it was such a potent experience because tapping into that energy, and I've received my painting, actually my original arrived just literally a week ago or something like that. I think
Oh,
I
wow.
posted it. um it is such a potent process to go through the sending of the picture, the taking the pictures. Like
Yeah,
it's not like taking a selfie. It's like it's an entire, you're
yeah,
naked, you're bare. It's so vulnerable. And for me, that was the second time because I had done it for Survivor. But even even the second time, I thought it would have been easier, but it was still quite the process. And your guidance was brilliant because you gave specific instructions. So yeah, I'd love for you to talk about the process. So um, how do women come to this work with you, and how do they end up then sending you the photos, either partaking to the projects, or maybe they can also do it on, I don't know, do you take commissions and stuff like that? But
yeah.
if you
Yeah,
can
so
talk
I
about that.
absolutely. I never stop. My brain is consistently going, oh, it's a blessing and a curse because sometimes it'd be nice to just lay down or something without goddess or universe or something. Go, oh, I've got an idea, blah 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 blah. So it was about my unapologetic project. Every single year for International Women's Day, I do an open call, and that's my big project in the year where all the women come together and we celebrate some way. So there was survivors, and then there was I did the inspiration cards, and then I did her story one year, and then it went to Sacred Rage, and then unapologetic. And normally it's when I'm in the shower. For some reason, I'm in the shower and I get these visions, and I had this vision of all of my artwork being projected, and these women actually walking as pieces of artwork as well, like with their bodies. It was like a live show, and I was like, oh fucking hell, no, what have I got to do now? And so anyway, and once I've had the idea, again, it's like when you see it, you can't unsee it. So I was like, right, there's the new project then. And then it percolates for a bit, and then I light my candles and I sit with it a lot and see how it integrates into what feels authentic for me. So then unapologetic was born. So I put the call out and I say to people, a little bit about it. And the first step is for, every single step. I'm always so adamant with the women that the whole process is a healing thing. Reading the post and not just scrolling past it is the first step. And then your part of your soul goes, oh, that's for me, and then emailing me is the next step, even just to email and say, oh, I might be, and so many women, they apologize for emailing me. I'm really sorry. Can you send me the information? And they're almost embarrassed and shameful to want to be naked and painted. Oh, it's not really for me, but I might give it a go. I don't really know if it's for me, but can I think there's almost this shame in a lot of women about even wanting to be involved in a project of mine which involves nakedness, because there's so much shame around women's nakedness. So then that's the next step, even putting themselves out there to send me the email. And then I reply and go, yay, this is amazing. Here's a bit more information. Do you want to sign up? And then the next step is to go, fuck yeah, I'll sign up. And then comes the information about taking the photos, because I work from photos. So I've painted women from all over the world, all over the world. And the way I don't instruct, but the way I invite women to take their photos is to make it a real process, a long process, a sacred process. You might want to do it 3 or 4 times before you send me the photos. And it's a real dropping into your body. Like you said, it's not just a quick selfie. It's not standing in an angle that like shrinks your body down or contorts yourself, or it's not holding your belly in. It's not just very quickly holding the phone and taking it of your body. I invite all the women to have their phone almost like on a video mode, so on selfie mode, but as a video, and to put music on to set the scene, to drop into your body, maybe to do a bit of breath work before or meditate, and to then just start moving your body, because the majority of women haven't actually seen their naked body for years and years and years and years, or looked at it objectively. It's just something that you touch quickly to shower or to put moisturizer on, and then it's just something that's there. So that in itself is such a monumentally deep healing process, to watch your body on video, even just moving in normal ways. You're getting into like positions and stuff like that, but then moving from position to position is what I find the most interesting, because you see the different curves and creases and rolls. And the first time I ever did it years ago, I was looking at my body like, oh my God, look how my body like moves when I sit down, and look at the shapes it makes when I do this. And even leaning, I remember the first time I leant forward to turn my video off, and my tits, like, they hung down like these udders. And I was just like, oh, I never see that. You don't see that in social media or anything. And I was quite obsessed with the different shapes that my body could make. So then from that, women screenshot the photos and send them to me. I mean, how outrageous that they're trusting me. I'm so blessed and so honored that women trust me. So they sent me the photos, and then I open up to sacred space. And you watch the process behind the scenes, because I always share in these big projects the behind the scenes process. I light my candles every day. I do so many every day. I use water from Glastonbury to bless the canvases. I use smoke. I drum a lot around the canvases to remove the residue and the energy and stuff like that. And then I paint, and then for the women to see their painting as well. They see themselves through my eyes in this glorious, celebrated, divine painting. Is just something else, because nakedness in women in this society is either put into two categories of shame or sexualization. We're and to see nakedness in a different category of like empowerment and beauty. And yeah, I fucking own myself, and I don't feel shame, and I've not done it for any sexual reasons at all. To see it not for the male gaze, but a woman in her power, in like a fierce pose, is very, very, very empowering. So that's how women do it. I do commissions when I'm not doing big projects. Like, I've got lots of commissions on the go at the moment that I've drawn up, things I draw the women, and then see what's going to come through with the paintings. But that's I'm also doing a project at the moment called Pussy Power.
I
Just
love
see some of
that.
the sketches from it. This is one of the ones I'm doing, and it's going to be my next set of oracle cards, is glorifying our vulvas, because this is another part of ragefulness that came through, because I used to be a teacher, and I used to teach year 5 and year 6, and part of it was obviously sex education. And the curriculum teaches girls that they have a vagina. And I'm going, yeah, but you also have labia, you also have a vulva, you also have, there's so much more that girls aren't taught about. They're taught that you have a vagina, and sex is for reproduction, and let's not talk about anything else, and that enrages me. So I'm so obsessed with women connecting back to their power as well, their bodies, but also these parts of their bodies which have been vilified by society. I went to the doctors. This really enraged me as well. I went to the doctors a few months ago, probably about 6 months ago, to talk about HRT, because I was really struggling with my ADHD and my hormones and stuff. And the woman doctor said, oh, how are you feeling down there? And I said, what do you mean down there? My vulva? Yeah, and then she was so I'm quite open about, and then she says, oh, do you still do you still have your time in the month? my blood. Yes, I still believe, and I'm thinking, you're a woman doctor talking to me about HRT and the menopause, and you're calling it down there and asking if my time of the month is still regular. And, name my blood, name my vulva, let's discuss it. Let's get rid of all the taboos about women's bodies and claim ourselves fully, which is what which is what every single thing I do is about, getting rid of the shame, brushing the shame away and being able to claim ourselves fully and name the parts of our body without shame. Why are year 6 girls taught that they don't have a vulva, that they just have a vagina? Obviously, I gave the education for a few years, so they most definitely learned all of their parts. Let's talk about our clitoris, let's talk about our G-spot, let's talk about everything that we possess, not just our vagina. So I think I've gone off on a tangent there. I can't even remember what the question was, but
No,
me.
but that's
I
perfect.
rely on you to bring it back to where it's meant to be. I
That's
just go.
okay. That's okay. That's my job, so that's fine. But it's wonderful, actually. Well, first of all, I can sort of 100% say that the experience from my part was so wonderful, because as partaking to the project and stuff. And actually, you mentioned her story, and it came to me. I was like, yeah, I have a painting for that as well. I have 3 of your paintings in the house, which are like so precious for me, and then some prints of other ones, but of myself. And that the receiving, as you said, sending the email already and receiving your responses are always so loving, and there's such a comforting energy that always comes through, and empowering too. It's like, you can do it, you're a goddess, these are the steps, it's super clear, and you can do it, and you feel so loved and so beautifully taken by the hand through the entire process. So that's, I can say that from the other
Oh,
side
thank
of
you.
the projects. And what you spoke, I actually, I can't wait for that oracle deck on the vulva coming out,
Yeah, yeah,
because that sounds
absolutely.
amazing, and it's so important. I have 2 daughters, and there has been so much of our parenting, myself and my husband together, that has been making sure that none of that, now they're homeschooled, so that kind of was in some way
Mm,
even easier for us, because they didn't have to then battle with the beliefs that are put in within a school system that may not be the same as our beliefs and stuff, but or values. But it was so important that that shame wasn't there, and we
yeah,
really, one is 15 now, one is 11, so going through the teens, going through the first bleeding. That was, I remember my eldest daughter, when she went through the first bleeding, was just going around, it was summertime, and she was going around the garden, is a shelter garden, she was going around naked and like letting the blood down, and she
yeah,
felt so good about it, and the little one couldn't wait. It was like, when am
yeah,
I gonna get it too? So that was so
yeah.
important. And yet that patriarchy that you were talking about, which, so even within an environment like our family, where we really, that was such a focus for us. I know my eldest has come to us several times just by watching maybe videos on YouTube and stuff about, oh, I feel my thighs are too big, or I feel like my breasts are too small, or
Mm.
maybe I have too much energy, and or I'm too sensitive. And I'm like, wow,
Yeah,
even trying our best, that message still comes through. So again, to underline the
yeah.
incredible importance of the work you're doing.
Yeah, because social media is horrific. Social media is horrific, especially for my daughter's 20 now. And that every single thing on social media is airbrushed, filtered, photoshopped. It's unrealistic. The women are so beautiful, but they represent about 3% of women in society. Plus, they're all filtered and photoshopped, and yet we're expected to have these standards that we live to. And if you don't look like that, or if you don't act like that, then you're not okay. You're not worthy, you're not enough in this society. And that's why, leading on from the unapologetic painting project, that's why I did catwalk, because then it became this living piece of artwork. We sat in ceremony for about 4 hours with I was with about 65 other women, every single woman completely naked. Actually, not every single woman was completely naked. And this is what's really interesting, because it wasn't about being naked. It's not just get your tits out for the sake of it, like, rah. It's about your choice, a woman's choice to show up in their body as they choose. So at the beginning of the day, it was like an invitation. If you would like to be naked, it's welcome. You have that choice to show up naked. If you would like to keep your knickers on, that's welcome. You have that choice. If you would like to keep your full clothes on, that's okay. You also have that choice, because women don't have a choice over their bodies. Women don't have body autonomy. So the day was a complete and utter choice. And there's sometimes power in saying, do you know what? I don't want to be naked. That's okay. You have the choice to be, if you want to be or if you don't want to be. Whereas in society, we don't have that choice. So we all came together, we sat in ceremony. Most of us were completely naked. Some women kept their knickers on, some put robes on, and that's fine. And we painted our bodies for hours, with our fingers, just witnessing other women, seeing other women, touching their bodies, just because it's okay. It's okay. It doesn't have to be sexualized. Nothing was about that. It was about empowerment. It was about honoring other sisters, worshipping their bodies, seeing them, and also allowing our own bodies to be seen. And then we strutted down a catwalk in front of an audience of about 150 people. And my artwork was projected in the background. So it was the vision from the shower that manifested. But it is, like you were saying with your daughter, it's this consistent striving to be picture perfect. You don't see anything on social media about the stuff that goes on in the background, or anything like that. You just get a snapshot of perfection. And then you get the younger generation, even every woman looks at it and compares, like, fuck, I don't look like that, or I don't act like that, or their business is so much more lucrative than mine, or they're doing things this way, or they look like this. And again, this is a patriarchal fucking structure that we're in, because women used to sit thousands, and you think of the statue Venus of Willendorf. She was apparently made, you know crafted 30,000 years ago. This is the time that women sat together in circle, and women were, I'm just doing a self-love circle at the moment, and we're talking about the fact that women sitting in circle isn't a new thing. It's the most ancient thing ever. And that's women's connection and their home, and they're supporting each other, and they're honoring of the sisterhood. But as the patriarchy started to take over, it realized that women together were strong and women together were powerful. So it cast all these women, making them jealous against each other and bitter, and pulling another woman down to raise themselves up. And then came the burning times with the witches, where Christianity and people were burning women just for being strong women, and women started turning against each other not to die. And this shadow behavior and this sister wound has carried on through generations and generations. So nowadays women are it's just intrinsic in their psyches to compare themselves to other women, and to try and make themselves better by bringing other women down. And then there's envy and jealousy, and actually it's women that need to fucking break this and say, we can support each other, we can love each other, we can embrace each other exactly as we are, looking exactly as we are. And we don't have to, there's a really good saying that I like, a quote, I might not get it right, but it's something like, burn down the fucking patriarchy, but don't use other women as kindling. Why are women, I get some of the worst emails I get, some of the worst trolls are other women, trying to bring down the work I do. And I'm like, what's going on here? We need to open our eyes as women and realize that every time we judge another woman, or bring another woman down, or you know go behind another woman's back or something like that, that we are feeding into this patriarchal paradigm of keeping women apart. Because apart we're weak, together we're strong. Again, I can't remember the question, but yep.
Yes. We we were talking about the unapologetic, and you spoke about the actual ceremony that happened. I couldn't be there because we have so many animals, and for me traveling at the moment is just not quite the option. But I can well imagine how incredibly powerful and experienced that was. And I love that you brought in the sister wound. And with this work, we're actually healing. It's, you mentioned earlier that we're doing it for all the women. So it's like there's the women that take
Yeah.
part of the project, and then there's all the women that can't at the moment do that, but that has a ripple effect. And I do feel very strongly
Yeah.
about that, about my work as well. So I really get that.
Mm-hmm.
But we're also doing it for like all the past. It's like we're actually healing
Yeah.
that generational sister wound, that generational mother wound that we're carrying,
Yeah.
and all the woundings that come from since the patriarchal system has come into
Yeah.
place. So yeah, it is work that I feel really, really strongly about and think it's absolutely amazing that you're doing. Now, you mentioned earlier that actually you ended up losing, and I know it's in your bio as well, you ended up losing your job last year as a teacher, and that was
Mm.
connected to the work that you are doing. So I don't know if you
Mm.
want to speak a little bit about that, because that feels like
Yeah.
when we're advocating for things like that and the courage it takes to do that, there also is a price
Yeah,
that we end up
absolutely. It's
paying.
potent. Yeah, there's a price. Listen, this sometimes I look at other people's lives that don't go down an activist route, and I think, "Oh, I wish that I'd signed the Akashic contract for that in this life, because it's really fucking hard sometimes." And the price is often my sanity. The price is, currently it's my business, because my Facebook page has been taken down. So I used to have a Facebook page up until November of last year with 60,000 followers, and that was my platform for my business. Which meant that I could pay my rent and I could carry on doing the work I'm doing. And Facebook shut that down. So obviously the price I pay currently is financial. But yeah, I was a teacher for 17 years. And I loved my job. I worked in primary school to start. Then I went to secondary and worked in a boys' school, secondary boys. Then I went back to primary. And I also have ADHD, and I also have Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, which is a connective tissue disorder. So my body doesn't produce collagen the way that a typical person's body would produce collagen. So my joints are very painful. It's chronic pain. It's everything that's connective tissue in your body is affected by collagen or lack of collagen. It's not even a lack of collagen for me. It's that my collagen isn't effective. It doesn't work properly. So things like eyes, heart, stomach, migraines, it affects the whole shebang. And one of the main ways it affects me is through chronic pain. So my joints, my ligaments and my tendons aren't taut enough to hold my joints in place sometimes. And about 3 or 4 years ago, no, probably about 3 years ago now, I couldn't even roll over in bed because my back was so painful. I used to have to get up, sit up, turn over, lay back down again. I was really weak. My joints, I was in chronic pain all the time. I couldn't really walk properly. And the physio said to me, you have to get strong. You're going into perimenopause. Your body isn't effective anyway. You have to build your muscles up. Otherwise, you're going to end up not being able to walk. I was like, oh fuck. So I get bored going to the gym. There's lots of stuff that bores me, and I thought, oh, I'm going to try pole dancing. I'm going to start pole dancing. Now I say pole dancing in a very loose term, because if anyone does follow me on social media, you've seen my videos. It's not so much pole dancing, but I really give it a go. I walked into this pole dancing class 2 years ago, just had my 2-year pole anniversary. And I was 48 at the time, and I was very overweight. I wasn't very strong at all. All the women there were in their 20s and teeny tiny and upside down. And I walk in going, I want to learn to pole dance. It took me 4 weeks to even lift both feet off the floor. I didn't have any strength at all. And fast forward 2 years, and I'm now upside down, hanging on by my thighs. My body is strong as fuck now. It's stronger. Like, you wouldn't know it from looking at me because of, I'm big, but I'm very, very strong now. My muscles are really strong, which is amazing. And so for me, pole dancing was connection to other people. It was pushing my body out of its comfort zone. It was getting strong. It was watching my body move. It was it was a different kind of self-love, because it wasn't just looking at myself and accepting myself. It was actually looking at my body and pushing her to be the best that she could be, physically. And the self-love that came from that was fucking immense. And I met all these people, and it's been an amazing journey for me, pole. And I share that journey because I'm not your typical pole dancer, so I share all the time. Look, I'm stood here in a pair of knickers at a pole, and I've got fucking cellulite wobbling all over the place, or I've got rolls, I've got this, I've got that, and I've had so many women either start pole or start cold water swimming or start Zumba because they've seen that I've stepped in out of my comfort zone, and I've got a body that doesn't look like the body that should be doing that particular type of exercise, but I'm fucking doing it anyway. So I share my journey in pole to empower other women. And there's a very, very long story, and I won't go into all the details, but basically, as a teacher, you're meant to not have a life outside of school. I had a really beautifully, wonderfully supportive parents network at the school I worked in. I'd worked there for about 8 years. I've been a teacher for 17 years. I'm different. Our class, we had crows. Our class pet were crows. We had Russell and Rita. The kids used to feed them every day. They used to bring us presents. Obviously we did spells. I taught them all about the pagan festivals as well as the Christian festivals, as well as all the other festivals. They knew about my lifestyle. They knew that I wasn't a Christian and that I was a pagan, and that I would be talking about goddesses. They were very open to all of this. And we had a great time. We had the best time ever in school, and all the parents were really on board, aside from one set of parents who again, I won't go into detail because there was reasons for it, but they found my Instagram page and decided that they didn't like the photos. So made a formal complaint to my head teacher, who is one of my best friends and has been for 18 years and still is one of my best friends. So it's not anything against the school at all. But this situation came up, and I was told by my union, and it's county rules for safeguarding children. I get that's important. But I was told I had to take the photos down of myself pole dancing, or change my name, or make my profile private. And I refused to do any of those things because I said I hold no shame in my body at all. I hold no shame in what I do. I'm not pole dancing for any sexual reasons at all. I'm pole dancing because I'm in a disabled body that needs to be strong. I'm pole dancing because it brings me joy. I'm pole dancing because it brings me connection with other people. And I refused to take the pictures down, so I lost my job. And it all came down, it was really stressful, and it was really traumatic, and it was really upsetting because I love my job. And every single other parent was messaging, going, no, you can't leave, you can't. And I was like, listen, it was like the universe then gave me this crossroads where, yeah, can I actually walk my walk? I talk the talk, but when it comes down to it, can I walk my walk? Am I going to be preaching to women about being authentic? Don't have shame in your bodies. Don't make sure nakedness isn't so. I mean, I never naked pole dance. Let's get that out there. I was always clothed, and I was always like a little bit more slug like than sexy. But this is what I preach. So then it came to it. What am I going to do? Am I going to bring the shame back into my body by hiding myself? Am I going to bring the shame back into this beautiful community that I've created by then saying, actually, I can't show myself because it's not okay, because society doesn't think it's okay that I do this. So I decided to walk away from my career, and I lost my job, and I kept my sanity. And the last thing I said, all the kids, I go into the school still regularly, and I see all my kids that I taught. And I went in, it was SATs week a couple of weeks ago, and I went in every day and I did a meditation with my kids to calm them down before their SATs. Don't even get me started on standardized tests. That's probably a whole nother podcast. But and I still see all the kids, and they know, like, they knew, the kids all knew I pole dance. I'd go into school and they'd be like, oh, how's your rotator cuff today, Miss Shaw? Is it still painful? It wasn't ever a secret for me. It wasn't ever hidden. And I did this gorgeous assembly to my kids before I left, and the parents, and just said, listen, I've taught for 17 years, and I advocate for authenticity in the children, inclusivity, diversity. I'm forever saying to these children, do not hide yourself, do not dim your shine, be unique, Don't follow the crowd if you don't want to. You know, I'm saying all these things to these children. Who would I then be if I hid myself? How could I stand in front of a class, you know, in the future and tell them to own themselves if I'm not owning myself? And that was my final lesson for my kids, that actually I believe in myself more than any kind of shame or structure that society is going to put on me. And I won't compromise, and I won't have my soul die inside in order to fit into someone else's box. You know, I was a fucking good teacher. I put 1,000,000% into that, and I hold no shame at all. And that's why I'm really happy to talk about it, because it's a patriarchy. It's a society that sexualizes a woman's body. I get it because it's a primary school and there does have to be safeguarding in place, but in this instance it was ridiculous, and I just thought, no, I'm not hiding myself, and that's that. So now I'm full-time full-time artist, not a teacher anymore. Mm.
And it is that journey of being unapologetic, isn't it? Like it's part of it. I know for myself that has been definitely part of the journey. I started knowing my values so deeply and my authenticity and how much that mattered to me, and how incredibly unhealthy and painful it had been for all those years that I
Yeah,
suppressed that, or even repressed part that I didn't even know were there. But that once it starts coming out, there's like this force inside that you can't stop it. It's like I can't
yeah,
actually
yeah,
go back. I can't take those photos down. I can't regress back to that person that hides, because it's not possible. And how
yeah,
beautiful that those images were inspiring women to actually
yeah,
put themselves out and go to classes. I have actually looked at pole dancing classes. Unfortunately, the only place for me would be Dublin, which is really far. So I was like, no, that's
yeah,
way too much every week. But it made me think, like I remember as a child observing my grandmother, and then afterwards my mother, that wouldn't, going to the seaside, they wouldn't put on a bikini anymore because their bellies were not firm anymore, and there were like the stretch marks. And and then as I grew up, my grandmother even stopped putting on a swimming suit altogether. She'd cover herself up until the point that she'd get into the pool, and then have me as a child to put the robe back on her the minute she got out, just so she wouldn't show any bits. And I'm not making them wrong in any way, shape, or form, but I do feel very strongly that for us, the women that are coming to your work, you as an advocate for all of this, that we got this awareness, we actually walk up to this, and so that this message and walking the talk, as you said,
mm, yeah,
can really even support all of, like, and stop, actually put an end to the cycle of this generational
mm,
trauma that has been in our bodies, in our DNA, the shame that comes with that.
yeah.
um my next question would be, so I do follow you religiously on social media, of course. So I do see all the beautiful messages that you get from women that have taken part in your project or that you've painted, and even women that just buy your paintings because it's inspiring. Even if you're not getting painted, there's so many of your beautiful paintings that are for
Yeah.
sale that are beautiful just to have anyways. But what are the main messages that you're getting? What's the main healing that you're seeing these women are experiencing?
Oh, you know, it's outrageous, the messages I get. They're so beautiful. Just before I talk about them, that's the reason I leave the faces blank on all my paintings, because in all the bodies I've painted, I want the women to see their own body and then their face reflects back. You know, the second I add a face into my painting, it makes it a woman. And then you go, oh, yeah, that's a lovely woman. Whereas when the faces are blank, you can find your body and you can be reflected back as that goddess. But no, oh, the I mean, I had a woman in her 80s say, and she just messaged me and she was like, this is the first time I've ever seen my body celebrated, you know. And it wasn't her that I'd painted, it was a different painting. And she said, I've never ever seen my body celebrated. I have women tell me that you know, another woman messaged me and she said, you know, thanks to you, my husband gets the whole of me now, because for years the light had been off and I would never let him see my nakedness, and now I embrace myself. I had a beautiful comment a couple of weeks ago from a woman who just, you know, these women have me in tears, and she said, I stepped out of the shower and I was just about to look at my belly. I caught a glimpse of myself in the mirror and I was just about to look at my belly and go, ugh, and then I suddenly thought, oh my God, I look like a Catshaw piece of artwork. And you know, it's the women who are just so empowered, not only to love their body, but to step into their truth. You know, to leave situations that don't serve them anymore, to step out and try something new, you know, to just be the permission to just be themselves in a hot mess. Because also I'm a fucking hot mess most of the time. You know, this is what we were talking about in this self-love Zoom that I'm doing at the moment. And I was saying, you know, you can show up completely done, like I can have a robe on and be very ceremonial and blah blah, but I can also show up in my pajamas. You know, I'm all over the place, and it's that permission for women to be real, you know, because in society we don't get realness. We get airbrushed. We get women that are only seen at a certain time of the day or something, whereas I'm on there all the time. Like, oh, the other week I was online and I hadn't brushed my hair in about 2 weeks. I had a big dreadlock and I was like, oh, for God's sake, you know. I mean, I know that you were online with me when I was doing the unapologetic project, and when I get into a hyper focus, I don't think I'd changed my knickers in about 8 days, and I kept saying to people I still haven't, because I just couldn't, because I was so focused on this. But it's this permission to be completely and utterly yourself at all times and still be worthy and still be lovable. And it doesn't matter if you haven't brushed your hair, it doesn't matter if you look like this, it doesn't matter if you're, however you show up as a woman is valid and worthy. And that's the message that I really try and portray, that however you are in every single aspect of yourself is worthy, you know, in the sacred rage, in the unapologetic, in the fuck you, with your scars, clothed, unclothed, all of it is welcome. And that's you know, the messages go along those kind of, you know, women are, what I love more than anything as well is when I do a live event. Like I've just been at a festival actually called Powdered Pussy in Manchester. The week before I was in Milton Keynes at a festival called Witch. I was at Mind Body Spirit at Earl's Court before that. And women come up and they look at my art and they go, whoa, this is lovely. And I go, do you know that each painting you're looking at is a real woman's body, because they've sent me their naked photos, and their faces just go, oh, and then the goosebumps, and they just go, you know, and they cry and they're like, oh my God, I've never seen real body, like real glorious bodies celebrated. So it's that kind of, you know, it's just allowing women to be imperfect and still be perfect in their imperfections. That's the most important part of what I do, I think.
Yeah, I remember that was actually a quote even in the first podcast we did together. It was like being perfect in your imperfections. And it's like
Yeah,
it is so liberating. We've received like the main audience on my podcast are women that have had very difficult relationship with their mothers because of that generational trauma, and because of that carry a lot of shame, because there was like what was acceptable and what was not acceptable. They've been shamed for aspects. I've been shamed like when, and you know that was the whole survivor project for me, like going through sexual abuse and being told by my own mother that it was my fault, my body that did that, and that I had to cover up. I couldn't go in front of a mirror after a shower for years because of
yeah,
that. And that was what that work helped me with. So, and then there's all the messages that we get from the society and the patriarchal system and all of that. So to get to a place where you can, is so far beyond what it's out there today quite a bit, the whole body positivity, that it's so far beyond that. It's not just being positive about your actual physical body, but through the body and accepting yourself, you are
yeah,
accepting your entire self, your emotions, your values, your flaws, because they're not
yeah,
flaws, they're just
yeah,
beautiful aspects of you as well. So that I feel very strongly, that has been my
yeah,
experience with your work, is like with each painting is like another layer of what I was carrying with me that I didn't need,
Yeah.
has been
We're
just
like beautiful little onions, aren't we? Peeling all the layers off. I think what's so authentic as well with me and with my artwork is that I'm still fucked from it all. I never stand in front of women or in front of a crowd and say, oh, look at me sorted. Let me teach you. I'm on this journey every single day. My cat's just been really ill. My mum's just been really ill, and I've been eating and eating and eating. And the other day I was looking, and I was like, oh God, I've put weight on. And then I'm like, it's still ingrained. I remember I said just before Unapologetic, I did a big long post about it. About a week before, I suddenly thought to myself, fuck, I'm going to be getting naked soon. I need to like eat healthily for the next week. And then I was like, no, what am I doing? So I'm still, I'm 50 at the end of this year. I started this work probably about 8, 9 years ago. So I've still got so much to unpick. So when I walk with people, I'm walking next to you. I've got a big loud mouth, so I shout, which is why I'm, present on social media, but under no illusion that I'm sorted in any way. We are all in this together. And I still every day it's a commitment to do this work every single day, because it's still, and that's why I think it's so authentic, because it's never a I'm sorted, let me teach you kind of dynamic with women. It's a lot of fucking hell, I'm feeling that my tits are too saggy today as well, and we're all on this journey together. And again, another lovely saying is just we're all just walking each other home, aren't we? I love that. And it's about bringing women together to support each other and to just be there, to be truthful, to be authentic, and just to be that support network that we need.
Mm-hmm. Yes, absolutely. I very much feel the same when sometimes I get approached by some, people that listen to the podcast or even clients and, oh, but you've got it all sorted. I'm like, oh God, I don't, I don't, I still have so much to work with, and it is
Yeah,
a lifelong journey. So yes, I really
yeah.
resonate with that. Um, have you any, I know we're very nearly at the end, but I just wanted to ask this. Have you any new project that are in the pipeline coming soon that you want to share or tell about the listeners?
Well, yes, I've got a really exciting online because I don't just paint, I also am a ceremonialist. So I do lots of sacred ceremony with women. I do lots of sisterhood circles. I do lots of sacred rituals and celebrate lots of, I do lots of sacred ceremony. And on Tuesday, I'm starting a year-long spiral Zoom, which is all about self-love and connection to goddess through self-love. And that's once a month online. I'm painting the pussy power at the moment. If anyone wants to send me a picture of their vulva, that'd be great. Listen, fuck, I'm so behind on everything. I'm so rubbish at technology. I'm behind on commissions. I've got flower girls to do. I'm always in the background. I always just say to women, get painted or be in a project or buy some of my artwork, because it actually isn't just artwork. It changes the energy around it, but also it changes your brain. If you're looking at different bodies or bodies that are beautiful and honored that look like you every single day, it begins to change the neural pathways in your own brain. So yeah, that's kind of what I'm doing. I've also got, for anyone watching who lives in the UK, I have a barn in Luton and I do lots of events there as well. I renovated a barn to find a safe space for women to gather. So it took me about 2 years or so to renovate this barn, and I hold lots of ceremonies there as well. So find me, ask me what I'm doing, and come and join the Catshaw fucking crazy bus for sure. That's what we are. Mm,
Yes, and the barn is such a beautiful, beautiful space.
yeah,
Like I know I see
it's
pictures
amazing.
that you post. It's wonderful. So, and we do have a lot of listens in the UK. So
Yeah,
definitely it's a blessing to be able to actually come to you and in person attend to some of the stuff
yeah,
that you do. So yeah, there's gonna obviously be all the links to find Kat and get in contact with Kat and see what she's doing next. So with that, and also you have a shop that's ongoing online where all the
Yeah,
paintings and the prints and beautiful merchandise with your art on it, which is amazing. I've got a few goddesses in my home that come from your
yeah.
shop. So they do change the energy
Oh,
of the
thanks,
space.
lovely. Yeah, they
Um,
do. They change the energy and they change your pathways. They change your perception, which is really, really, really deep.
I can definitely testify that. So yeah, to conclude, is there anything else you feel you want to add? Final message for the listeners that you want to
Oh, my final
bring?
message. Well, what would my final message be? Fuck it. Fuck society. Fuck everyone else's opinions. Do you, be confident in the knowledge that you are enough, just as you are, exactly as you are. Don't compromise yourself, don't shrink yourself. Because you know what? This is good. I know I keep talking, but this will be my last one. This is not a fucking rehearsal for life. Do you know what I mean? And life, like I said, I'm 50 at the end of this year. Life goes really, really quickly. I look back, my daughter's 20, and I'm like, fuck, where did those 20 years go? And I say to all the women who work with me, if not now, then when? How long are you going to stand in the shadows? How long are you going to be in the corner? How long are you going to keep yourself small? Before, what are you going to do? Be on your deathbed and then go, shit, I wish I'd left that job, or I wish I'd done a bungee jump, or I wish I'd started pole dancing or something like that. So if not now, when? Step into it, my lovelies. That's what I say. Shut me up. Tell me to stop. Cut me off, otherwise I'll keep talking.
Oh, no, no, no. I could go on forever with you. I love these conversations. So that is a very powerful message. So I don't want to add anything else to that. That was wonderful. Kat, please don't go anywhere. I'm going to stop the recording, but I want to say goodbye to you properly. And
Okay.
for everyone else, thanks so much for listening. And again, if get in touch with Kat, buy her art. It's beautiful, it's
Okay, go
wonderful.
on.
And if you
Get your
feel
tits painted.
yeah, and if you get called to partake to one of the projects, she will guide you through it, and it's an amazing experience. And so yeah, from that, I wish you a wonderful day. I'm sending you lots of love, and bye for
Love.
now.
Thank you for having me again, gorgeous.